Hello and welcome to my office. These seminars are all about strategy in the pharma, medtech and other life science businesses. If that's relevant and interesting to you, then please hit the subscribe button and stick with me for the next few minutes. And if you have friends in the industry, then please tell them about this, the other videos on my channel and the 400 free publications on my website. All the links in the notes below. So tell me, have you ever made a strategic decision that seemed absolutely correct at the time, but turned out to be wrong? You had all the data you needed, you analysed it thoroughly, and you made what seemed like a good decision. And yet, in retrospect, it turned out to be pretty stupid. Most experienced executives would admit to doing this. I certainly do. So this seminar is about why this happens and how not to be stupid. Let me start with a real-world example. I worked with a brand team to understand why their product launch had not met expectations. They knew that segmentation and targeting is the foundation of a strong launch, so they'd carefully crunched masses of data to identify and quantify their target market segments. And they all agreed which were the right segments to target. And yet their launch failed. So they broke their promises that they had made to their senior management team. Now, my work with this really great team went the way that many of my advisory projects do. They asked me one question, but I helped them to ask a better one and to find the answer to that better question. So at first, they asked me how to analyze their data even better to improve their segmentation and their targeting. But when I looked at what they'd done, there wasn't really that much they could have done better. They were very smart people. But they'd fallen for something called McNamara's fallacy. I'd be surprised if you've heard of McNamara's fallacy. McNamara was a bright guy, Harvard professor, president of Ford, and then US Defense Secretary. And during the Vietnam War, McNamara based his decisions about strategy on data like bombs dropped and body counts. He paid less attention to things he couldn't quantify, like political will and public sentiment. Long story short, this led to him making mistakes, not because he lacked intelligence, but because his intelligence made the numbers look irresistible. So today, when someone focuses on what they can easily measure and they disregard what they can't, well, we call that McNamara's fallacy. So what's that got to do with my brand team? Well, in business, we have a habit of favouring hard numerical data over other less tangible sources of information and knowledge. And that's exactly what this team had done. So we discussed it, and then we stepped back and asked a more fundamental question. What is it that actually drives prescribing behaviour in this market? Was it the variables that they had used to segment the market, like current prescribing patterns, age, location, work context, and so on? All of which were measurable, all of which were nice and tidy, all of which were types of data that they could buy easily. Or was it something harder to quantify, things like risk aversion and how prescribers saw themselves self-identified, as it were? Those are the sort of human factors that they had largely ignored because they're hard to measure. Well, it didn't take long in our discussions to work out the answers to the questions. In their market, it was human factors that drove prescribers' preferences, not the hard data factors. And that's often the case in pharmaceuticals. As a result, this team's launch strategy, which built on the data that was easiest to measure, didn't reflect how prescribers really make decisions, and consequently it failed. They had done exactly what McNamara had done in Vietnam. They measured what was measurable, not what mattered. Avoiding McNamara's fallacy doesn't mean ignoring the hard data. It means finding the right hard data that correlates well with what drives behaviour. And that typically means combining qualitative and quantitative data from both formal sources like market research and informal sources like feedback from sales teams. It's much, much easier to fall for McNamara's fallacy than to avoid it. And that's why many of even the brightest brand teams make this mistake. And it's also why those who don't fall for McNamara's fallacy have a competitive advantage over those that do. So, McNamar's fallacy isn't just about numbers. It's about forgetting that numbers are never the whole story. Whole story that explains how your market really works. And if you'd like to know more about that then, and to get a copy of the article I wrote about it, then please get in touch. All my details are in the notes below.